Twitch is up, classically. Waiting for YouTube. As always. Should be up. There we go. Alright, that's there, and this is here. Alright, and now I can see the whole world. I can show you the world. Cool. Just reorganizing my windows here. I want all the information. Okay, a little bit of a different setup today than usual. I'm in tabletop here because I want to, there we go. I want to be able to play around with the pieces. I pulled in a few different Castles expansion or Castles workshop things. I am going to go with the special edition to start with, and we'll see if we need to change things. Yeah, this looks close enough. You may be wondering what is going on over here. I have this lovely device called a Remarkable. It is basically just a note-taking device. All it does is take notes. This is set up as like a live capture of this, so when I draw on here, it shows up on there, but you're seeing. So that will be kind of my way to, take notes down here. And then have them show up for you guys. Obviously, I will be drawing a little bit nicer than that. But the goal today is to map out this game because it is a game that can. I think that it feels like a game that should have optimal moves. Why did you do that? Okay. Okay. We're gonna do a different one then. Don't know what's going on with these things. Oh, that's fine. Where are the extra maps? Where are the extra maps? That is what I want. Because at some point I'm going to have to deal with this. No. Shields. I love that they have Google embedded in this. Oh my goodness. What is happening here? Yes, sir. Looks normal. There's an expansion. There's expansions. Great. That's what I need. I'd imagine that there's I'll dump this back in here. And then where are the these? Like, nope, those are the resources. Oh, here's the tiles. I'm just blind. Okay, cool. Oh, these are the ones that end up in the middle, huh? Yeah. This will be yellow tiles, animal tiles, buildings, mines, ships, or cool. Castles. Alright. Where would I like to get started? I feel like the best way to get started is over here. So fundamentally, across 5 rounds, with 5 turns per round, there's and 5 rounds, 5 turns per round, 2 actions per turn. There is 2 turns 5, 5. Is 50 actions throughout the game. So the question is, how can we get the most points per action? And then I guess a follow-up question is, which, I guess using that, like, what is your potential points per action, we can figure out like what pieces are worth playing. For example, like castles seem really strong because they give you extra actions, but when you use one, like how much value are you actually getting, and is that better than placing something else? So I think if we go from first principles here, like what gives you points, and the only answer is putting pieces onto your, let's pull out one of these. Why do I have? So, like, why is there? I don't like the fact that that worker things there. There we go. Perfect. I'm gonna just go ahead and clear off a bunch of. Ooh. Yes. No, that didn't work. Whatever. That's clean enough. Let's also unlock this. Oh, it's already unlocked. There we go. All right, we'll throw that over there. Great. Cool. Now we can like see things, and we have some space to play around. Cool. So from first principles, the ways to get points are by placing a tile. And placing a tile gives you points by either the tile itself, like which building is it that I'm not going to find it there, but there's a description of the buildings, I'm sure. It's the watchtower. So tile itself can give you points, and we'll have to discuss, I think, something like the bank, for example, which gives you 2 silver coins. Is the bank's effective value 2, or potentially more than that? This could also be, let me, animals are also just direct points. What else here? So from playing the tile itself, it's mostly the buildings that give you. Yeah, I think that those are the only things that give you direct points, is watchtowers and animals. The second thing that the tile can do is it can fill a. What is the. I feel like the right name for this is region, but I want to. A size 3 river. There's no. Yeah, regions. Okay, regions. Great. So you can fill is maybe the wrong word. You can complete a region. Where are the rest of the points? Oh, yellow tiles give. I guess yellow tiles fall under tiles themselves. So the tile itself can give points. You can complete a region, which also gives points. The only other way in the game to get points is to ship goods, if I recall correctly. Right, like you get points from completing a region, or from something that just gives you points directly, or from shipping your goods away. Which I'm just going to double check here. Oh, there's also these things, completion bonuses, which I'm actually just going to list under this. So under completing a region, you can also get all region. Oh, you guys can see all regions of the same type, which is dependent on order. Because you could complete all your forests or whatever without actually getting any extra points for that, because you're the last one to do it. Which we will talk about that later. This, I believe, is the. Well, obviously, of course, it's like based on what pieces you can take or whatever, but I think this is the only piece of the only piece of variance that is based on other players. Other players' boards. Obviously, there is variance. I'm going to leave an asterisk here. Obviously, there's variance that is based on what tiles they take and everything. Like, which is also out of your control, but this scoring is the only time when you place a tile that its score is dependent on other players' boards. Last way to get points, I'm actually gonna shift all of this because placing a tile is the broad category. Let's do it like this. Placing a tile is the broad category, and that gets 2 points in these few ways. And then the other way is to ship goods, which we'll also talk about because taking an action to ship goods could be advantageous or not, I guess, depending on the effective value of workers and or silver coins if you're generating them with the one yellow building and per player. I think, well, this should work at any player count. We'll figure out player count later. Of these 50, I'm going to just make a note up here that actions are take a tile, place a tile, sell goods, and get workers. I hate drawing the letter K. It always looks bad no matter how you draw it. Okay, so we're really trying to figure out the effective value of any given action. There are some actions that you are forced to take. For example, taking a tile or getting workers. Sometimes you, based on your dice, you have to get workers. But given that placing a tile and selling goods are, I'm going to update this, are the two ways to get points. We will use those. And I think that it might be worth trying to figure out. So I'll just leave myself a little bowl. I also would like to, beyond figuring out the effective value of action, be able to figure out the effective value of, say, workers or gold coins. Silver coins. What are they called? Yeah, just coins. Which I feel like coins can be derived because you can spend 2 coins to get a building from the black market, or you can, they're worth 2 points at the end of the game, right? So coins are either worth an action or 2 points. Putting a pin in that, I'm just gonna make a note here. I don't know if this is the right way. I'm not sure if this is the right way to frame this, because you're not always going to be able to get an action. from 2 coins. Also, like, is 1 coin worth half of what 2 coins is worth? Like, is it worth getting a coin if you can't get the second one? They're worth 1 point at the end of the game, and technically they're worth half of an action. I love this one spot on this. There we go. I don't know if this framing of coins is helpful. I also don't know if figuring out the effective value of a worker is like, I guess you could do it statistically of like the dice rolls and then like what you need to go where. I do want to like do some averages over boards and everything. I think in order to get to these goals, we need to work backwards from how many points a given tile can be worth. Because I think fundamentally there's going to be a winner of like, this is the best type of tile to take because of X, Y, and Z. Or maybe we're not going to get there. But I would like to. My engineering brain says that there must be an optimal way to do this. I want to start with. I've been thinking about this a lot over time, and I am trying to trying to there are some things that I'm just going to kind of vomit these out and then I'll pick up on them later. Given these ways that you can get points, which like really is just from completing regions, like you get points from other stuff, right? But like all of the buildings just help you get more things to place, and then like the castles help you take more actions, the mines help you get coins and then take more actions, the yellow buildings give you points, the animals give you points, the ships indirectly give you points by giving you resources that you can then sell for points. Because nothing actually generates you, very few things actually generate you points directly, the effective value of a given tile like must be somehow linked to the size of region that it is being used to complete. I don't know if that tracks, but like that is kind of like thoughts like that. The effective value of a tile must be linked to the size which also might force that to be also the EV of a tile must also be linked to when that region is being completed. All right. Let's take this. Turn this off and recapture that. There we go. All right, let's take this and put it. Actually, let's just. Where is this? An alpha location. We'll just put it here. I'm going to leave this just over here for now and make myself a new page. The DAR. I think the EV of a tile is more tied to what it grants you. I think the buildings give you more actions, worth more than animals, regardless of region size. I think that you might be right, but I think that depends on the EV of an action, right? Like, if if the expected value of a given action is, I don't know, 7, I'm just making up a number, right? If the expected value of a given action is 7 points, and you have the opportunity to take an animal that is going to be placed into a large region that could be better. Let's that a little bit smaller and leave this first set of thoughts. I'm going to make sure they don't get hidden behind my head. Let's leave these here. It's going to be small, but it's mostly just for reference. Let's do it like that. I'll just fully cover it up. We'll shift back and forth if we need to. I think the best, I kind of want to start with just a board. Let's start with the base board. There is this one. And then let's see. To play a tile on the board and thus get points through the same method, it will cost you 2 actions. So with no bonuses, you can play 25 tiles on your 37 tile board. Yes, I'm fully on board with that. And my intuition is that the EV of an action is high. And so the ability to generate extra actions is good. But I think that because the way that my mind is going is that the EV of placing a tile, I'm going to rewrite that so that it's more legible. equals, let's put this down here. The EV of placing a tile I would ponder is equal to something related to the region size that it's filling plus like there's some value that can capture the location it's being placed at, right? Like how big that is, how early in the game that is. So something related to, there's like an indistinguishable thing right now that I hope to figure out, but that it's equal to I think the EV of placing a tile is slightly higher than the EV of gaining tile. I'm not sure I agree. Turn on this light real quick. I'm not sure I agree because in order to place a tile, you have to gain a tile. I think that the two actions are linked, and that the EV of picking up a tile, let's say that placing a tile gets you on average 10 points. I don't know. I would argue that the EV of picking up a tile that when placed will give you 10 points would be 5 points. And the EV of placing that same tile would be also 5 points. Gaining a tile is easier through silver and more bonuses versus placing a tile is more dependent on lock-in specific numbers. Yes, I agree with that. I want to save that idea for later, because I think that there is 100% a there's something to be said about how many of each action you can take, right? How many things let you take a tile action, right? If coins only let you take the coins only do let you take the tile action, and only from the black market. Is that EV lower because it is the EV of taking a tile lower because there is less, or because there's more ways to do it? I think that is a something definitely I want to explore later. So I'm going to argue that the EV of placing a tile is some function of time and location plus, let's do this down here. So it's some function of time and location plus the reward that tile gives you. So this almost becomes recursive of if the EV of placing a tile is some function of time and location plus the reward of that tile, and that tile lets you place another tile, there is some recursion that will happen there, which we'll try to figure out. That's what we're here to do, is we're here to figure this out. The EV of gaining a tile I'm going to argue is equal to half the EV of placing a tile. Or I guess I'm just gonna say that it is equal. And then I am going to say that the EV of placing a tile is all of this times 1/2. And this is an assumption, and I'm going to roll with it for now. But I'm going to leave like this asterisk here of perhaps the EV of like I think that the EV of gaining a tile and the EV of placing a tile are related, and I think that they are inversely proportional. Like either they are exactly equal, or they like that. Let me rewrite it like this. The EV of placing a tile plus the EV of gaining a tile equals all of this. So some function of time plus the location and region size and the reward of that tile. And this allows for a tile to potentially give a reward of gaining a tile or placing a tile, which could have different values. This, I think, gives us space for that. This part feels easier to pin down. It feels easier to quantify a reward. Although I can see how this is going to be slightly unquantifiable. And tile dependent. This I would like to start with because it feels easier, I guess. Because actually thinking about like a reward of a tile is based on the EV, right? This is going to keep going back and back. And so until we have some notion of like how good it is just to place a tile, like if you placed a tile that did absolutely nothing, what would it be worth? So let's start with that. Some function of time and location. So time is fairly straightforward because if you like the points for maybe we could take the average region size and calculate that value and divide by number of tiles to get a baseline of what nothing tile is worth wise. Yeah, I think that this value is different based on the different boards. And so I would actually rather do like an analysis on one board and then see if we can carry that analysis to another board. right? Because the EV of a building on this board might be different than the EV of a building on literally any other board, like this board, right? So I think I want to start with that. I mentioned that earlier, and I like that you brought it back up of like the idea of a nothing tile. Let's add that to. I'm just gonna add like a little ideas section. A nothing tile is just like a tile with no reward. So I think that I want to do this focusing on a specific board, but let me know what you think. Like that could be the wrong approach, but I think that it is worth exploring. Although I guess it is a good note that a nothing tile could go in like any spot. Hmm. So function of time and location. I think we can start with time for this axis. Because it is a linear scale, right? If you finish it in round 1, you get 10, round 2, you get 8, round 3, you get 6, round, etc. I think that the time aspect of this is fairly simple. So the time aspect is this is interesting because you could place a tile in a region and then not end up completing it exactly. I'm what Svidar is saying is, although thinking this through more, that value isn't real value unless the region is completed. So it may not be worth a deeper dive. I actually would argue that if you place a tile, let's say in round 1, your EV for it has to be based on whenever that region completes. Right? So if let's say with this board that I place these 2 buildings up here, say in round 1 and 2, I would argue that the EV of placing these buildings would actually be based on when I fill this last building in, say, round 3. Right? If I fill this in round 3, I would argue that the EV of all 3 of these actions is based on how many points that was worth, which could be the wrong way to think about it, but at least in my head, that kind of makes sense. It's like, hey, I placed like these 2 tiles earlier on, but even though I was taking actions earlier on, their EV was lower because of how the directionality to scoring, right? The placement of this tile has still got some effective value based on its tile reward. But if we go back to like the value of like an action, that like we have the reward of the tile plus like some function of time and location, and this is the component which will change, but like it is still there's still some value, even if there's still partial value, even if like the left side of the function ends up decreasing based on how your other plays go. So I would argue that there's like to just encode this, we have like a 10 more pushback to that evaluation. when you score, it doesn't change the actual completion points, only the bonus points depending on the round, which decreases by 2. There's not much of a deviation. I agree. I completely agree with that. But I think that that deviation potentially like could be the difference of like when you choose to complete a region or not. This is actually something I've been thinking about a lot of like when do you want to complete a region, right? Because losing that 2 points per round matters less for bigger regions, but more for smaller regions, right? If I complete a region of size 5 in round 1 versus in round 5, the difference is 8 points there, which is 1 and a third. It's 1 and maybe 3/4 points. Not quite that high. It's a little less than 1.5 points per tile. But if I complete a region of size 1 in round 1 versus in round 5, the region is like the effective points for that tile is -8. Right? So the 5 tiles that you place in a bigger region, they each are worth 1.5 points less per play. 8 divided by 5 is what? 1 and 3/8, or I don't know, 1 and 3/8 sounds right. It's close. So I think that there's it's something to encode here. So we have 10 times, or I guess we have 10 minus 2 times the round number, where n equals, and I'm going to leave this 0 indexed because I don't feel like making it 12 minus 2 times the round number. So we have this value, and I believe, as we actually just talked about, that this value is then related to the size of the region, right? Because this has a smaller impact the larger the region is. So I think that we just divide this by the size of the region. Right? So for a size 1 region, if we focus on just the time part of this, S would be 1, and then if you play it in round 1, it's worth 10 minus 2 times 0 is, we'll leave the round number not 0 indexed, and we'll put the -1 over here. So in round 1, a 1 size region, ignoring the other components, would be 10 minus 2 times 0 is 0. So just 10 divided by 1 is 10. We have to add in the size of the region somehow, which we already have here encoded by S. So it's that plus let me think about this a little bit more. If we've got a region of size 5, and we somehow finish it in round 1, right? You get perfect plays and you can finish a region of size 5 in round 1. Your EV of a given piece would be 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, so I think this part of the equation makes sense. That the EV of a given piece in a region is 10 minus 2 times the round number divided by the size of the region. Let me make these S's a little bit clearer that they're not 5s. That was such a clean S. So clean, oh my goodness. So I think this side of the equation makes sense to me, and does work at scaling region sizes. I think that on the right hand side of this plus sign is just this value divided by the size, right? So if we're in a 1 size region, it's just 1 point each. If we're in a 2 size, it's 1.5 points each. If we're in a 3 size, it's 2 points each. If we're in a 4 size, it's 2.5 points each. Right? So it is direct, but I'm going to say S sub B. S sub B size bonus divided by S. And then this size bonus, I'll just copy the table here. 1, 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, 10, 5, 15, 6, 21, 7, 28, 8, 36. I think that's the entire function. Let's test it out a little bit. Let's move this over. So actually, let's move this over because I think that this is relevant. All right. So with this set of placements, let's take die. No, let's not take a die. I want to counter actually. I don't want one of these big ones. We will do it with the text option. Let's be able to go on the table itself. I lock this to here. Will I be able to write on it? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's try out this function. We'll start from the bottom and go up. So for this spot here, we are in hey, I'm going to use this kind of like space here for we're in, I guess let's calculate it across rounds. In round 1, the size is 3. We're going to have 10 minus 2 times 1 minus 1 is 0, divided by 1, or sorry, divided by 3, plus 6 divided by 3. So we've got 10 thirds plus 2 gives us 2, sorry, not 2, gives us 5 and 1/3. So in round 1, this would be 5.33, repeating. In round 2, the only thing that changes here is this left component. So in round 2, this just becomes 2 minus 1, which becomes 8 thirds plus 2, which becomes 4 and 1/3. And this is a very linear scale, right? So this becomes 4.33, and then in round 3, it would become 3.33, right? Because this would, no, it doesn't drop down like that, does it? In round 3, we get 10 minus 4 is 6 thirds, which ends up just becoming 2 plus 2 is 4. Because the left side of the equation scales down, but it scales down logarithmically toward 2. So, oops. Okay. In round 4, this would be 4 thirds, which makes our total value 3 1/3. Did I do the math wrong? Ten, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, and then in round 5, this is 2 thirds, which becomes 2.66. I'm already fascinated. You posted something in the Discord. Size, round, value. I like this. It was on my list to later put, let's see. Oh yeah, you can combine these fractions. So given the size and the round, yeah, I like this. I'm going to actually do exactly the same thing. I eventually was going to pull out some Python and write up something later, but where is I'm going to copy this verbatim if that's okay with you. Let's zoom in here. size. Let's see. This would be 10 minus 2 times. Helpful. Thanks. Great. We'll use yours. Fantastic. Well, let's look at this set. I'm already fascinated because, yeah, I'm actually happy to just use your sheet for this. I don't know how much more stuff I'll be adding in here, and there's no reason not to play around. I may copy it out later if I need it. But even just looking at this table, right, we can see that for smaller sizes, they scale down much faster, right? This scales at, actually, I'm only going to copy this out because I now want to do stuff with this. I want to calculate a scaling factor, which is effectively like how fast these scale down, right? So I basically want the difference between each of these, and then I want, it should be, yeah, it's not linear. How do I want to see this value? This one is linear, right? It's 2 per round. This one is 1 per round. Oh, it's based on size. Because it is linear. It's linear divided by the size of the region. So this equals, basically the, like this one is just 2. It's the difference in these. It's this minus this divided by this number. And you can do it for any of them. Yes, I wanted to autofill that. I can go like this. This should be 1. Oh, because it's worth calculating as a per tile, right? Like the difference is 1, but that means that for each tile that you place there, you're losing that many points for not completing it that round. This whole table, very useful. This set of values I am fascinated by. Let's actually also, I don't like that. I also don't like this. This set of values I am fascinated by because this tells us that larger areas have a cliff of lost EV for playing in them. Or conversely, that smaller areas have a significantly higher opportunity cost of not filling them. I'm wrapping my head around this right now. So effectively, if we take this board, the opportunity cost of not playing in a single spot, or any given single spot, in the first round is a flat 2 points per round. The opportunity cost of not playing in one of these 5 spots is a cost of 8 hundredths of a point per round. Huh. It scales down so quickly, right? For the 3 areas, it's only 22 hundredths, 2/10 of a point, basically. Huh. I think that we have our function of time and location. Which the function is great, and I think gives like these values. And this is a piece of fascinating information to me that makes me curious about whether I think that is a data point that we may use later, because it certainly tells us something about how the values change. From, I think, the perspective of like, if you complete a region of size 5, you're getting somewhere between, oh wait, these don't get scaled. This is wrong. Because this function already takes into account the size of the region, right? Because we divide by the size of the region, this is the total points of the regions divided by the size, which means that our function, if we divide by the size again, will give us, so it's still true, but it doesn't scale down that fast. I did that wrong. Still scales down, but scales down slower. Because this is already, we were basically doing an exponential. This is still useful information, right? Your EV for playing a piece in a 5 zone in round 1 is 5 if you can complete it that round, but then even if you don't complete that until round 5, it still has an EV of 3.4. I like this function. Let's hold on to that. I'm going to leave that away. Let's reset these and move on. So we've got our function here, which, as you mentioned, can be reduced to 10 minus 2 times n minus 1. I'm actually going to leave SB over here. Progress. All right. Which now means that we can go try to figure out the hard part, which is what is the reward of a tile. We can also use this to calculate, I guess, the idea of a nothing tile, right? Because I think that that can help us determine the reward of a tile. If we assume that, because I mean, the same way as any recursive function has to have a stopping point, if we set the reward of a tile, like if a reward is placing a tile, it's just so circular because that tile reward could be placing a tile, and then you get an infinite recursion. So I think that for the sake of a base case, that our reward needs to be, like, if the reward is placing a tile, it is a nothing tile, meaning that it just I'm thinking you can rewrite this as if the reward is, say, placing a tile, then you could rewrite this as the EV of gaining a tile plus the EV of placing a tile divided by the EV of placing a tile equals this function. Right? You can just replace reward with that value. That would give us one function, and then in order to solve a function with two unknowns, you need two functions. Which means we would need some other way of relating these functions, or these values. Which I feel like we can use the idea of a nothing tile to potentially help us with. I also could be going down completely the wrong hole, which is sometimes what happens in math. Let me think about this for a second. This feels like a slippery idea to try to pin down, right? Of like, how do we calculate the reward of a tile? It's what makes me think that we want to try and instead calculate the EV of placing a tile or gaining a tile first. These could be the wrong equations to be starting from. We could say that the EV of gaining a tile is 0, and the EV of placing a tile is this function plus the reward of that tile. But I don't think that's right. That doesn't feel right. It feels like we could use that to get some value and then it would translate down. But there feels like a right way to answer this. You know what let's do? Let's start with some examples and see if those can help drive us to a solution. So let me copy our larger equation over. I want to start with the tiles that are very easy to define. Yeah, the EV of gaining a tile can't be 0. I agree with this. Let's start with animals. I actually do care about everything that is in this bag because I care about the count, which is not something that I could figure out on VGA. Well, that's easy. Okay, Bizarre says, what if we assign gaining a baseline value of 1, so then placing a tile would be our determined value minus 1. Effectively, if we said that EV just equals 1, and then the reward equals EV of placing a tile plus 1. And then, like, you could rewrite this as EVP equals reward minus 1. Yeah, I 1 feels really arbitrary. But it's hard to give something else. Yeah, it is arbitrary. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. That was kind of where I was going with the idea of, like, what if we just set it to 0? Let me go back to my first page. What if we focus for now only on the tiles that don't give extra value, extra actions? I mean, like, if we focus solely on the tiles that give value somehow, which is going to be our yellow tiles and our green tiles, as well as we can figure out how to make the ships fit into that model. And I have an idea about mines. It requires us to get the EV of coins. Selling goods, I think, is a fairly simple calculation. The points for selling goods is just number of players times the number of goods you have. I'd like to get that one out of the way. And times G. This is a pretty easy. A discussion on this. I love it. let's read. And the point value once they've completed an area divided by moves. I like that idea. It is from 2014, but we can always build off of past people's work. I like this idea by dividing by number of moves, because then instead of trying to calculate a different value for gaining and placing a tile, we can just take one value, which also reduces our number of variables. It is perhaps a little bit less detailed, but what if we can work from here, right? What if we can take, right, if we do the simple version of assuming every free action is just a free action, right? Then like we don't have to try and have this distinction of gaining a tile versus placing a tile for now. It could help us get a ballpark estimate, maybe. Let's read some more. I don't like this assumption. Value of tiles is not apparent. Try different estimates. One brown value has value of 4 points, so it'll be a benchmark. I also don't like this because I think that that is the worst building. Because I think since every other building gives you an action, that they're worth way more than 4 points. But I also could be wrong. That is just a feeling. Value of the tile. Yeah, so it's 11. Oh, sure. So it's 11 plus the value of the tile, which we're assuming at 4, which DVD would be 15, yeah, 7.5. You have to spend 3 actions to ship the goods. Maybe. We get that at the bottom. I don't know that I agree with some of the assumptions they're making, but I like the thought line of like filling 3 ships, which gives you 4 goods in 3 different numbers, which you then have to spend actions to ship. But it isn't necessarily always going to take you, like that could be wrong if you then ship a few more times and collect more goods. 4.6, which drops based on player count. This is also something that I've noticed, that shipping is significantly worse in a lower player count game. Is action. Sure, I follow this logic more or less. There's also a sure. Bonus action points. This feels low for buildings. Sure. I agree with this. I also agree with this. I like the assumptions, or I like the results. I don't love the assumptions that we used to get there. This is my intuition, but I don't know if it's correct. Maybe. I'm interested in this thread. Taking advantage of situation 5 with dice, random tile placement, those now with their taking each tile have a different value depending on the state of the game and player order. Yes. I completely agree with this, that tiles can have different values. But if a given tile is, if you can quantify how strong a tile is for you or for another player, it would stand to reason that then with the given set of dice you have, you could make the optimal decision of which tile is going to be worth. Potentially, that means that you say, hey, this tile is worth 5.5 points for me, and this other tile, which I could take, is worth 7 points for my opponent, but only 4 points for me. Taking the 4.1, well, they can take the 5.1, gives them 2 less points than they would have gotten if they took the other one, or something like that. Yes, this is also true. Yes, but like, I don't think that that's reasonable. Yes. Yeah, this is what I was thinking. Yes. Sorta. I think that this also depends on, let's see. It sets a baseline of 2 points per action. While technically the same number of points, you can only hold 3 types. You have to take more shipping actions. So yeah, I also don't like the shipping argument. Yeah. I think all of this leans heavily into like there is synergy between things, which yes, but even that synergy should be quantifiable. It feels like it should be quantifiable. I like this. Yes. this also is exactly what I was just talking about. Like walking animals can be particularly strong if the EV for someone else of taking that animal is higher than for EV for getting anything else. Yes, true. This is very true about like dice flexibility and potentially opening up more areas, which is very hard to quantify. I think that kind of no matter how we end up writing the math, that it doesn't really quantify. Um, I completely disagree with this statement. 100% disagree. Half actions are worth it. Like there are other ways to potentially get silver. There's a lot of knowledge buildings that mention silver. And also, like 2 half actions over the course of 2 rounds is an action. I don't like this argument. Let's see. I don't think I agree with this statement, but I potentially don't have enough knowledge to give a reason why. Um, yeah, I this answer is very well thought out. I don't agree with everything. I also don't disagree with everything. But I do like their thoughts. Yeah, other people disagreeing with the shipping. Yeah, this is also true. Yes, I agree with this about workers potentially being useful to make an action even more strong. Um, Another calculation. Uh, how do they get to victory points per action here? This feels so arbitrary. Where did these numbers come from? What the hell? I'm mad. I'm so mad. How did you just come up with numbers? Um, Three-player game. Each of them in phase A in one of those types attempts to complete the largest type. with the bonus being added to it. Lastly, assumed worker usage. Yeah. Yes. Hand waving and assumptions, which I don't want to be using. Let's see. One of the things that long response has said is that let the point tiles you take early director strategy. I really take every knowledge point tile early. That feels wrong. Like it's easier to block. I agree with that. I think if you have, I think it's in a more inexperienced game that it like can be more dominant. But yeah, like if you take either of these early in the game, it's so easy for someone to say like, "Hey, I'm not going to let you get any carpenter workshops or trading docks or whatever they call them, warehouses." Which I completely agree with that. And if you're playing a more involved game, like with better people, they will counterplay you more. So I agree with that. All right, let's get back to calculating EV. This post had one thing which I really liked, which is number of moves rather than no. I really appreciate this sidetrack. I think that looking at how other people think about the game is super useful, especially in a post that's on like the value in the game. I want to amend our thing. I don't want to go as far as they went to say that you want to calculate the value by the sum of the point value once they complete the area, because I think that it's captured within our function here. But I think that we can consolidate this down to one piece of information, and then later on we can try to separate that out into like, is placing a tile or gaining a tile more or less strong. And I think that might be able to help us. If we combine them for now, we might be able to get some intuition or understanding that might help us separate them back out later. So I'm gonna say that this equals 2 actions, which also equals some function of time and location, or I guess the EV of 2 actions. 2 actions equals this function plus the reward of that tile. Actions. And I think that in this case, the EV of 2 actions, right, is we have this function. What just happened? Okay. We have our function of time and location. And so now we're just like, how do we calculate the reward of the tile? And I think it's tile dependent, right? So let's just go through the tiles and do math. I can do this, I guess, in the bag. Or this one has an area of 1 and 5. So the original board has 5 and 1. Let's actually, these boards have numbers. So board 1 So board 1 has a size 5 and a size 1. Board 2 has size 4 and a size 2. Board 3 has a 4 and a 2. Board, this must be board 4. Board 4 has a 4 and a 2. 5 has 3 and 3. Board 6 is also board 4. 5 is 5, 7. Points per action. Let me have a look. I like it. A slightly different table. 8 and 9 are 6 and 0. 10, 11, another 4, 2. There's a bunch of 11s. There's another 6. Let's see, there's 16 boards here. I'm gonna do this. 4, 5, 6. Whatever. Um, 5 and 1. 5 and 1. 4 and 2. 5 and 1. 4 and 2. 4 and 2. 6. 6. 4 and 2. 3 and 3. 3. 3. 4 and 2. 6. 4 and 2. And then 3 and 3. So of the 16 boards, we have 4 that are 3 3s, 3 that are 6s, 3 that are 5 1s, and then there are 5/1 3 boards. There are 4 and 2 on 5 boards. 3 3 on 3 boards. And 6 on 3 boards. 5 and 8 is not 3, 6, 9, 8, 14. Oh my I just did this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 and 1. 2, 3, Yeah, there's 3, 5, and 1s. 6, 6, 6. There's, yeah, there's 3 6s. 2, 3, 4. Four of these. Which means that there must also be 6 4 2s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm tired of this. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Block that one. 3 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6. There we go. So fun. Okay, so if our sizes are as such, the average size of an animal location across, well, I guess that's actually not relevant at all, how big the average size is. How should we start calculating this? Because there's also animals in the black market. Oh, there's 4s and 3s of each type, and then there is a 2 of, where's that? Look like ducks. Let's ignore for now. It looks like they just have a 4 and a 3 of each type in here. But if we ignore the black market for now, the average number of animals that you're going to get on, actually the black market makes it easier because it has a 4 and a 3, and then we have 2 4s and 2 2s, and the average number of animals that you get on tile is 3. Great. maybe hand wavy, but you could also say that it's 10, 14 divided by 5. 14/5, which is just under 3. So depending on how you would prefer to calculate this one, I'm going to say 3, though. You could also argue it at 2.5, assuming that opponents are counterpicking you and taking the 4 animal that it matches up with yours. I'm going to leave this at 3 and leave a little asterisk. So if your average animal per tile is 3, I think how do we build up some sort of model about, I guess this reward is also based on size, which is fine, right? Like if in this function here, like this part is based on S, and then this part is also based on S, like that's fine. I don't like how this is laid out right now. Better. So I think that this is also based on size. It's also based on type of animal, obviously. And I think that there is some unquantifiable randomness as to which animals come up. I guess it's not unquantifiable, it's very quantifiable. But the larger area you have, the less likely you are to get, like if there's a, if you're in a 6-0 space, the odds of you getting 6 animals of the same type are, even just for all of those tiles to come up. I guess we have to, for all of our assumptions, we're assuming perfect, not perfect, we're assuming like the most advantageous positioning, right? So it's kind of like assuming that you could play all these tiles, here's what you could get. And then you can kind of calculate based from there towards what it's actually worth. The odds of, let's see, there's 20 animals in here. In a 4-player game, I guess all 20 would come out. And I would prefer to do the math for a 4-player game. In a 4-player game, you also get 3, 6, 8 black market tiles, which means you also get both the other ones. You get 7 of each animal type in a 4-player game. So theoretically, you could get them to all be the same type in a 4-player game. How do you feel about using this assumption of being able to get all animals of the same type for animal tile rewards? I don't think you'd ever complete with one animal type. I agree, generally, like in a game, you're almost never going to get that with one animal type. Technically, all 7 animals of that type will come out. You'll never get that. Let's calculate it just for shits and giggles, and then we can assume that on, I think, anything bigger than 3, that you're going to get 3 of one animal and then 1 plus of a non-matching animal. Even in a 4-player game, not everyone can be building only castles, right? And if you are playing with high-level players, they should be counterpicking you some. But I want to make the math easier for now, and then we can add the complexity back. So at an average animal per tile of 3, and we're assuming that you get 3 plus, how do we write this equation? This is based on the size. So at a size of 1, it's just worth 3. At a size of 2, it's worth 6. 3 would be 9. 4 would be, oh, sorry, that's not how that works. It would be 3 plus 6 plus 9, and then the 4th one, which we would assume is not matching, would then be 3 again. How do I write this into an equation? Use mod 3 to the size. I don't think 3 to the size quite works. I think that you can do it like this. You can do S, even if it was the same size or the same animals. The first one would be like at size 1, you'd have 3. At size 2, the total points would be 9. At size 3, it'd be 18. At size 4, you'd get another 12. It'd be 30. I wrote an equation like this for my budget at one point. This one, I think that we can do a little bit easier. We can do S times, let's see, because if we factor this out, right, it's 3 times 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3. And this length, oops, is S, right? So it's length S, and then each value in there just increases from 1 to 3, which means these values are effectively S mod 3. This is how we write it. Summation from 1 to size of 3 times S mod 3. Does this make sense? I think these are the same. and the summation just gives us something that we can apply. Let's apply this to a couple of different boards. Let's take this and then let's take one with a 3-3. So given this, if we were to calculate animal EVs, we have our function of time and location, and then we also have, let me code this into our Google spreadsheet here. That's relevant. Yeah, whatever, that's fine. So our animal points equation is going to be insert. No, I don't want that. I actually want the symbol. Where are... I know how to do this in Google Docs. And let me do it this way. Done. All right. So the summation from 1 to, whoops. Let's unbold all this. Whoops, 1 to S. Of 3 times S, yeah, S mod 3. It's going to be our function. I'll write it out the same way we did above. Which, if we, in this case, the only thing that we have is size. So size equals I'm using the wrong, I don't need mod, I need the one where it just rolls over at the top. I guess you could do mod of S and 3 times 3. No, mod is what I want. Mod is exactly what I want. I want S in the dividend and 3 in the divisor. And then, because mod of 1 and 3 is 1, 2 and 3 is, and then 0, which means that I guess what we could do is we could do whoops. If we if we do it like this, 1 minus 1 is 0, 1 minus 2, whoops, sorry. 2 minus 1 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 goes to 0. We need the result to be plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, actually, there's only 3, 4, 5, 6. I brute force stuff. Let's mod of this and 3. Yes, we just need to increase this by 1. Because we want, yeah. Is in it? No, we don't. We want 0 to be 3. Which means we can add a conditional afterward, but I don't like how that looks math-wise. If we shift this down 1, minus 1, apply that here, and then we add 1 to the result. There we go. Now the magic question of why does that work? And that would be, how does this work? The plus 1 just takes the remainder and shifts it up by 1. That gives us 1 index values rather than 0 index values. Oh, and then the shift on the mod just changes where we fall on the scale. All right, let me update my thing here. I'm actually still going to write it as this. So s minus 1 mod 3, this whole thing plus 1. Three times size minus 1 All right. So let's calculate the points here. We've got this, which we can lose all of our spaces here. That is, I'll put that, oops, no. now we have that. Is oops, total. I don't know that I want to. The thing is that I want to. Power series. Let's see. What are our options here? I want a series sum. No, I don't want to. I don't want a power series sum. How do these work? No. Oh, I could use the app script. Okay, fine. We're using the app script. All right. How did they say I need to write it? Okay. Whoops. Animals. Some. Which needs to take in. But that's a double with an array of arrays. Cool. Okay. So I should be able to just give this one. All right. And then what I want is what I want is sum from 1 to input of 3 times I, well, I guess 3 times -1. And rename this as size. Mod of size -1, 3 plus 1. All right. For how do for loops work in what language are we even in? JavaScript. Cool. So results is 0 for let I equal 0, I is less than size. I need to start at 1. I is less than size plus 1. That goes up by 1. Result. Does JavaScript give plus equals? Great. Result plus equals 3 times. I get mod in here. I'm gonna have to write mod. Of course I am. Return. Wait, there must be a mod operator in. There has to be. Okay, great. 3 times get all these brackets right. Size. Well, actually, it's I plus 1. Mod 3 plus 1. Somehow I knew that I would be writing code by the end of this. Great. How do I, let's see, write a function. Custom function. Custom functions. Wait a minute. Oh, I should be able to just use this. Equals. Let's see. Create a spreadsheet. Extensions app script. Delete the code for the double function. Copy and paste it. Script editor. Hit save. Hit save. Do I have to name this input? Use custom function. Let's go! We did it! Code! Yay! Okay. I love to see it. This is with our yay code. Man, that felt so satisfying. Like, okay, I gotta just get on my high horse and rant for a minute. I hate AI. AI makes me so frustrated because I am a software engineer and I am getting AI shoved down my throat and I must use it every day. And the amount of code that I produce is a lot. But even this small example of like writing something new in a language that I have never seen before, like that small bit of like learning and problem solving with like getting the math right and doing all the like everything, like that's so satisfying. And when AI just writes all the code and you spend all of your time just reading AI slop and telling it to fix it, it is not enjoyable. It drains all of the fun out of it of like getting a function that does what you want it to do. you know? Um, this is not entirely right though. 3 is 18, but the next one should only add 3. Um, but yeah, little rant about AI. This added 9, and then this added 3, and this added 6, which means our cutoff was wrong. I this value oh, it's supposed to be a string. Yeah. All right, let's run that again. Do I have to call it? All right, so I is 1. This value is 3. That's wrong. This value should be 1. Oh, classic. Really, really classic mistake. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Really classic mistake with the minus instead of the plus sign. All right, save that. Reload. Ah, perfect. It's already reloaded. And then we can do a points per tile, and then we can do a points per action. Which this is going to be this divided by this. And then this is going to be this divided by 2. right? This feels right. Our points per tile here is 3, a little higher here, etc. And then our points per action. Animals are not very good. What did they say animals were worth? The second person gave a hand wavy answer. What did they think? Ah. Yeah, I don't know that that's a good assumption. I think our assumption is better. What happens if we don't what happens if we don't loop over? I want to change these to animal sum all same. How did they get to 4.35 victory points per action? If they all match, I guess the average size is still going to be 3. If you get 5, 5. I think they're underestimating a little bit because the average size is 3. The order that you get the points does change a little bit, right? So if you play a 4 and then a 3 and then a 2, it's worth 4 plus 7 plus 9 is 20. Versus if you play 2, 3, 4, it'd be 2 plus 5 plus 9 is 14. So this is an average. Your average EV. I don't know. I think this is an underestimation, just a little bit. Anyway, gosh, how long did we spend on that? Half an hour. Half an hour to figure out animal point EV. Obviously, it could be significantly lower than this. This is, where should I add my assumptions? Average animal size of 3 with average get 3 of same animal. Great. Now we have values that we can apply to our boards. Let's start with this board on the left. So your average EV for these 5 spaces I think we should just pull from this table. So I'm going to run it like this. Since we can't, oh, I guess there are 2 and 1 spaces. Hold on, I gotta amend this. Oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get rid of that. I'm gonna do another one of these. Copy this whole thing. Yeah, I know your values aren't happy. All right, so what we want is what I want is this, right? Because we have our function of time and location. So this equals this. And this I should be able to all right, 2.5, 267. Great. All right, and then these we can all. So regardless of what round you completed, it's going to be worth this. So this is going to be plus this. Wait a minute. This is, you mentioned this top table is giving us points divided by size, so it's points per tile. I almost want both of these. But let's take the points per tile for now. So this plus this. Plus these should be able to just push. Not work at all. Why? Nope. These are NA. Because there are not 7 and 8 options. Probably. This is interesting. Our points per tile is 3, then 4.5, then 6. Then it degrades. Oh, as you start playing the other animals and it builds back up. Why did we? All right. This one's wrong now. All right. S plus 1 plus 1 part. Let's go. Okay. And this gives us our first bit of actual data. which is our effectively this is our points per space, i.e. the median two actions, well, the rough EV. Okay, we're getting somewhere. It's time to move on. I want to look at this just a little bit. For whoever's watching, like, am I still making sense? Have I lost my mind yet? Or is this like a legitimate result for us? We need another table here for tiles placed that don't complete a space. I'm not sure why the EV of two actions is higher than the EV of a single building completing a region. This function up here is just our function of time and location. And so we just added in this, which is why it's higher. All right, I've been known to be wrong. Right, the rewards. Forgot about those. I guess this is the other table. Like, this is the table if you don't complete the region, and then this is the table if you complete the region. Right, like if you play 4 into a space, you end up getting 21 points, but you don't get the total points. Which, if you play 4 into a region, you get the expected points of 5.25 points per tile. But you're missing out on some extra value if you didn't complete the region. Which I am going to take this. Points per action. I'm going to just duplicate this though, because it's just this table divided by 2. Divided by 2. That work? Yep. And it freaking screwed with my stuff again. Divide by 2. is points per location. This is really point per tile. Which this, and then this is points per action. And then let's copy this again. Did it? Oh, I missed by one. But these are all wrong now. So close. I'm missing either direction, so like this. I'm missing both directions here. And should be this one still. Actually, oh, this whole table can just equal the other table divided by 2. You need to have a bed. Try to catch the archive. It's been interesting. I will probably be continuing this next week. Like, I have some free time this week, but not a lot. Hope you have a good evening. It's been fun hanging out. I will continue this today, and then I'll come back with my thoughts and whatever I've worked on from now till next week. Thanks for hanging out. All right. All right, so now we have a points per action for animals. Yay. One done. Fascinating. What next? We're obviously going to do buildings last. And I don't really want to do yellow tiles right now, but they feel like... let's do ships. All right. This got moved into Google, but this is our equation. That's an awful arrow. That's our equation. All right, ship tiles. I think for a 4-player game, that you have to assume that with a given, let's see, hold on. Let's look at the board. All right, in a 4-player game, you're gonna get 5 goods per round, and there's gonna be those 4 ships plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So technically, there is exactly as many ships. There's one extra ship than there are goods. A theoretical idea about whoops, whatever. A theoretical idea about ships could be that each one, on average, is going to pick up one good. For this, we maybe need to do some stats on. I mean, but then we start getting into a discussion about timing, right? Of when do you play your ship and what are you able to pick up with it. But you could pretty safely assume that every ship you play is going to be able to pick up one good for you to ship. That said, valuing that good is difficult because one action later on is going to be worth more or less based on how many goods you picked up and what types, right? If you ship 6 times and you get 6 of the same good, your action at the end is you're going to be able to spend one action to get 24 points. Odds of that are obviously super low, but if you ship 6 times and get 3 of one good and 3 of another, your ship at the you spend 2 actions later, then it ends up being the same 24 points, but it's at 12 points per action instead of 24 points per action. I guess what we can do is we can calculate the EV based on the different tiles that you pick up, right? Like, why not calculate it? I mean, we've already got tables that are based on, like, hey, based on whatever, here's the points you're going to score, right? All of this is in the hopes of finding an expected value for a given action, right? Where you take the average of some values. Which really what we're doing right now is we're just calculating the value. We're not calculating the expected value. But once you have values for every action, then you can use stats to find your expected value. So I don't see why we don't put together a table that is based on number of different tiles collected from 1 all the way to 6, right? Because you get 6 ships. We're gonna assume 1 good per ship, which in a 4-player game yields 4 points, right? In a 2-player game, you could perhaps assume 2 goods per ship, but it still results in 4 points, assuming they're the same type, right? So I think that we're going to call this a wash, and we're just going to make the assumption about 1 good per ship, because this will mapped down onto 2 players. With 3 players, you probably assume a little bit. You assume like 1.5 goods per ship, and then over the course of the game, it maybe adds up to about that, and then you can you would still get roughly 4 points because at 1.5 points per or 1.5 goods per ship. If you did 2 ships, right? 2 ships in a 4-player game would be worth 8 points once you then do the sell, and in a 3-player game, 2 ships would then net you 3 goods times 3 points is 9 points total. Just something of note. Oh wow, it's been 3 hours. I should stop soon. Let's get through ships. So we're going to assume 1 good per ship, and if we assume 1 good per ship, that means that our points here are really based on actions rather than, like, we can't really do. I mean, we can sort of do a points per tile because there is size and round, but there is also there's a tacked on points per action later. It's almost like the reward of the shipping tile, like this part of the function ends up just being an addendum to this, right? So like it increases your effective value of an action later. But it how do we quantify this? Some things that I'm thinking. First, you could quantify it by rewriting, like by saying 2 actions equals time, location, size, whatever, plus like half an act, like some function that's dependent on actions, like on the EV of an action, right? like you could say that the reward is some function that is dependent on the EV of an action. It is hard to do static analysis when there's future implications involved, which is the same problem we're going to have when we try to calculate EV of an action generally, like for buildings that just give you an extra action. But I think that's almost a little bit more straightforward, right? Because it's like, hey, it gives you an extra action, and so whatever the EV of an action is, you add that. Also, as mentioned, like yes, there is the unquantifiable EV of being able to go earlier, which I'm not even going to try and quantify. So it could be a function that is based on the EV of an action. That doesn't feel right. So the first, let's assume that you can pick up I think that this has to be calculated as like a number of actions. Because if we rewrite this equation a little bit, we can say that 2 actions plus 1 action equals our function of time and location plus 4 points per ship times the number of ships that you've placed. Obviously, that match that type. Because effectively the reward of a ship is no reward. Actually, you could write it like this. You could say 2 actions equals our function lowercase f of time and location plus 1 because the good is worth 1 point at the end of the game. Like you could start it at being just a +1 and then if you left it at just +1, it doesn't take into account the extra points that you get later. But in order to do that, you have to say that, like, you're changing the value on the left, you're changing the EV of an action. What you could do maybe, my brain is tickling something out here, there could be something about, like, you could increase your EV of all of your actions by 4 divided by the number of actions you end up taking in the game. Right? That way it's spread out across all actions. That extra. Well, wait, I guess it could be +1, or it could be +4 minus EV action. Right? Because this encapsulates how much you're gaining by getting the extra value and how much you're losing by losing the ability to take another action. Which, when we look at ships on a points per action are almost, or sorry, animals on a points per action are all, except for size 1 and 2 pastures in round 5, are all above 4 points per action. Right? Whereas ships basically get this requirement of if you only get one good, you could also rewrite this as 4G minus EVA, right? 2 EVA is our function of time and location plus 4 times the number of goods you ship minus, like, the number of goods that you get with your ship minus EVA. I like the direction that this is going. I'm trying to find a way to reconcile these two ideas where it could be worth 1, or it could be worth 4 times the number of goods you ship minus the expected value of an action. Although I guess technically if you add G, you should also say G prime expected value of an action, which is how many actions you would need to sell that many goods, which ends up giving you a 3-layered problem space. But given this, I guess you could just make 2 tables, right? You could make a table for this top option, right? where you can make a table for just the +1 option, and you can also make a table for the +4 minus EVA option. Interesting. I'm gonna have to explore this next week or next time. I'm gonna need someone to challenge my thoughts on this. To talk this out a little bit with. But I think that this could be the beginning of a function for ship tiles, is this step function here. Where effectively, if you were trying to maximize your value when taking a ship, you would say which is greater, 1 or 4G minus EVA. And what this looks like in practice for calculation is that 3 EVA equals our function of time and location plus 4G, which means this has to make up for, obviously, for an entire EVA. Okay, I'm gonna leave ships like that for now. Let's move on to mines. I didn't want to do these because they require, well, actually, this is fantastic. I need to go to the bathroom real quick, and I have ideations about how this is going to work. I have ideations. All right, here is my ideation on the value of mines. It's really quite simple when you think about it, and it goes back to that blog post we were reading, where Moose was really complaining about where is it? Someone said something about half an action. Yes. Mine is worth 0.5 action per round. Half actions are worthless. Half actions are worth 1/2 EVA. A half an action is worth 1/2 EVA. So, a mine is going to be our function of time and location already takes in n, which is our round number, which means that a mine is going to be our round number times 0.5 EVA. That's the value of a silver. A silver is worth either 0.5 EVA or 1. Right? So similar to our ship tiles where we have the end game versus mid game, we like silver is worth either 1 at end game or it's worth 0.5 EVA. Simple. Yeah, like a mine played in round 1 is worth 2.5 EVA. Well, no, it's worth n minus 1 EVA. It's worth n minus 1 times 0.5 EVA plus 1. Because the 1 at the end of the game is worth just 1. So it is n minus 1 times 0.5 EVA plus 1. You could also say that if you never spend the silver, it's worth times 1 plus 1, which is just n times 1. Well, it's the inverse. So in round 1, this is the inverse of n. So it's 5 minus n. So in round 1, that will be 4. Yeah, so this is correct. It's 5 minus n. Usually, if you wanted to do the complete inverse, you'd have to add 1. Right, so in round 1, like on our bottom option, it's 5 minus 1 times 1. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. In our top option, it's 5 minus 1 is 4 times 0.5 EVA. So we get 2 EVA, which is the dollar that you make in round 2 and the dollar that you make in round 3, which is worth an action. And then the dollar in round 4 and the dollar in round 5, which is worth an action, plus the 1 at the end of the game. Mines are simple, baby. It's easy. Okay. It's easy. We have castles, yellow tiles, and buildings. And for buildings, I almost want to go over every different building because they all have different PV. Um, castles are also easy. A castle is writes itself now. Now we're really cooking with gas. Castles. Anyone want to guess? I know there's no one on the stream right now other than me. Castles are really easy, folks. It's really easy. We just gotta think about it. What does a castle give you? It gives you a free action. What's an action worth? 1 EVA. Castles are worth EVA. It's simple. It's easy. Which also makes the buildings pretty easy. We're gonna do the buildings next, actually. Buildings. Let me grab the rule book real quick. All right. Markets. EVA. Carpenter's Workshop. EVA. Church. EVA. Warehouse. I want to say EVA. Selling goods is an action. But I think that when we say EVA, we specifically mean, well, what did we talk about for ships? If we, this value right here is where we capture the points for goods, meaning that effectively this value, right, our sell goods value and how we score points, this option right here is already captured in our EVA for how we score points, like how we're encapsulating the value of points, which means EVA really means just the expected value of an action, which does not include selling goods, because we have already captured selling goods in this component, right? Because if you were to add up, right, if you were to use these equations and add up all of the actions that you take across a game, you would start with 50 EVA, right? And then you would effectively play a game of substitution. All right, -1 EVA to pick up a tile, -1 EVA to play a tile, right? And then that 2 actions would give you your function of time and location plus your tile reward, right? Maybe your tile reward gives you +1 EVA. Great. If you play a ship, you get +4 times the number of goods you shipped, and you lose 1 EVA because you have to. It's effectively choosing that option forces you to ship it later, right? You could leave that in a, who knows state until you end up shipping, but that is like that's if you add up all the moves, you end up getting 0 EVA at the end of the game by spending all your EVA, and then you maximize whatever is on the right hand side. If you think about it, like every time that you drop 2 EVA off the left, you add whatever the thing is you get on the right. And since you add a negative EVA, it costs you, that many more actions. which means that a warehouse is what is what? We already the value of selling goods is captured in the playing of ship tiles. No, it's just EVA because this is the value of the good and this is the value of the action you have to use to ship it. So warehouse is just worth EVA. Boarding house. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say 0. Because we have not placed a value yet on workers. We are going to do that. I do want to note, like, at some point, like, we will rock you. Bam, 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 bam. We will rock you. So at some point, we need to calculate. We actually already have this written. We have it written right here that we need to calculate the EV of a worker. No, that's not. All right, cool. We're good. We're good. Which also means that if if a if EV worker, right, is some value, and EV of so you can spend, so 1 EVA equals 2 EVW. This is a legal trade that you could make by spending a die to get 2 workers. It is the general consensus that this is a bad choice. Why is doing it with a boarding house a better choice? The argument is really, oh my goodness, the argument is really that doing it with a boarding house allows you to get these extra points. We're on to something. Hold on. Let me cook. If a boarding house, because you can write this equation back to say that because this equals 2VA, get 2 EVA. Like, hold on. Let me grab my equation. Right, we have EVA plus, well, just, sorry, 2 EVA. 2 EVA equals our lowercase f of time and location plus r Let's copy this. Just use cut. All right. So collective consensus says that this is bad, but that this is good. Right? Bad, good. But if we plug our boarding house into here, right, we get 2 EVA equals function of time, location. If the consensus is, well, so let's rewrite that. 2 EVA minus our function of time and location equals 4 EV worker. The consensus is basically that it is worth getting that function of time and location. But if you can't, then it's not worth it. Wow. What? This is breaking my head a little bit. Basically, if you devalue a worker by the function of your points per tile, then it's worth it. Right? If workers were worth the function of your points per tile, then they would be worth it. What? Either boarding house is, because if you're taking this play, you're really saying like the function of your time and location is something that you'll take. Like that is better than everything else. Which it kinda is. What this also tells us is that getting a boarding house in a space that you can't end up filling, you would have been equally well served to just take workers twice. Perhaps better served if you have the right yellow buildings. Holy crap. All right, let's finish the buildings. I have boarding house is an interesting one. Leave some stars here. Bank. You guys guessed it. It's 2 times 0.5 EVA because of the value of a silver. Which just equals EVA. Town Hall. EVA. Watchtower is just 4. Cool. That's buildings. The last thing that we have is yellow tiles. I was going to put it on the right here. I still will. Is there a way to empty the whole bag? This table's so slidey. Alright. How many of these give points? I believe that we can put a value on most of these. What the heck is that one? That's from the expansion. I believe we can put a value on most of these with our current set of. We don't have really a notion of expected value of dice, so like this and this have unquantifiable value for us right now. This is missing one. This is also from the this is missing the this is missing the extra point per animal when you place it in option. We're gonna do yellow tiles next time. Alrighty, folks. This has been probably the funnest one I've done yet. It's funnest stream I've done yet, by far. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you all in the next one. Next time you're in